the World Bank in the East Asia region. Welcome to our 21st edition of the Cities on the Frontline. Last week, we started to look at sector-specific response to the COVID-19 crisis. Today, we will explore how cities have been using digital technology to try to respond and adapt to the new normal. Nini will introduce our speakers in a minute, but first, let me remind everyone of the intention of this speaker series and the ground rule for the conversation today. The purpose of this global webinar is to have an open and honest learning conversation between practitioners in cities and government and partners supporting those entities. The calls are not on the record, and we ask that you not attribute any comments made today or question asked to the speakers unless the materials are made available after the call or you have the person's express permission to do so. We're thrilled at the response to the webinar. We have close to 300 registered people for the call globally. So to facilitate the discussion and as a matter of practicality, we ask that you use the Q&A function to pose a question. Note that the material as well as the recording of this session will be posted online on Monday, and so you will have access to all the material that is part of the session. Nini, over to you.
Thank you, Francis. I'm Nini Purwajati. I'm a senior manager with the knowledge and practice with GRCN. Today, it's a very interesting topic that we will discuss. Digital transformation has been a key in COVID-19 response, as well as we can see going forward as it is dealing with reopening. Before we start, please watch your screen. There will be 2 questions popping up on your screen. Kindly please answer, and then we'll share the result during the Q&A session. Today we have amazing lineup of speakers. First, we have Aida Esteban Millet. She's the Senior Director with Visa on Urban Mobility and Smart Cities in LAC. Also important to highlight that GRCN just launched a new program with Visa for LAC cities on digital economy. It's called Resilient Cities, Shaping a Digital World. And then with second speaker, for us, especially in Singapore, we're moving closer to home. Fabien Clavier is the Senior Urban Planner with World Bank. He is currently working on a study on technological response of ASEAN cities to COVID-19. And then we move to Rotterdam for the third speaker with Vieveen. He's the Smart City Program Leader from City of Rotterdam, and he'll share how the program is adapted with this COVID-19 context. Aida, now the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. So Alex, please, you can project the presentation. Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you and have this discussion in an open and honest space, as Francis was saying, especially with such an interesting and necessary topic nowadays. So what has happened really with the pandemic is that it has demonstrated us how dependent we are, citizens, governments, companies, from the digital technologies. Here in Visa, as an engine of commerce, we really believe our technology has a lot of value for cities and governments, as we can easily and securely really move money in a very frictionless manner. And I will give you some cases later on. But just to mention that, please, Alex, can you move to the next slide, please? But in this context of digital payments that we are here in Visa, we have seen how the pandemic has accelerated years of progress into the span of a few months, and massive shifts are here to stay. What I would like is really to share some of the learnings we had this last month I would like to share it with you and then give you very practical examples on how we have helped some governments around the world. So if we look at e-commerce, for example, right, in e-commerce, what we've seen is that we've seen the acceleration of 3 years' worth e-commerce growth in 3 months as a result of the COVID. So just to give you an example, here, for example, in the US, where I'm based, the number of active cards using e-commerce is up at least 30% versus pre-crisis in segments such as retail, grocery, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. 30%. This is huge. If we think about, for example, touchless payments, right? As you see it here in the second pillar, what we see is that consumers, merchants, governments, everyone is really embracing the value of touchless payments as, of course, as a replacement of cash. Contactless or tap to pay is clearly the fastest, the safest, but even more important nowadays, the cleanest, right, way to pay when you go to the checkout, and it requires no contact with any person, with no terminal, so very easy to use. So if we look again at some numbers, it's very astonishing. Globally, on average, we've seen a 20% lift in card transactions following the rollout of Tap to Pay, 20% in these recent months. And over 50 markets, 50 markets, in the last months also have announced Tap to Pay limit increases. If we look also at governments, specifically, governments are really taking increased interest in digitalizing their economies. The COVID-19 is really leading governments to digitalize payments and rapidly distribute stimulus funds. We've seen the news these last months. It's extremely important, right? So we are supporting dozens of state government initiatives, including unemployment insurance programs, and developing different solutions to rapidly also expand government's emergency disbursements programs. I will explain you in a second one example. So we are seeing really digital payments are critical for the recovery. We recently announced also a very strong commitment to digitally enable 50 million small businesses, and in specific now during these recent months. So, for example, we have a project called Back to Business Project, which is basically a basic online tool that helps consumers identify businesses that may be open in the wake of the pandemic or even a natural disaster. It's live in US, Australia, and really globally expanding. So in conclusion, what we've learned really is that there's a massive digital leap forward that applies to all forms of money movement, and really growth is expected to continue. Alex, please, if you can move to the next slide. So the COVID pandemic has really strengthened the search for alternative channels for the distribution of social benefits and the emergency base. The crisis presents, we all know that, presents very complex and unique challenges, such as the incapacity to use cash because it's not the most hygienic option, of course, because of strict regimes of social distance that are imposed, of course, to avoid contagion. So since really the pandemic has started here in Visa, we've been working hand in hand with partners, customers, governments to bring solutions that are fast, efficient, secure, and of course, transparent. So just to give you an example here on the slide, you can see in the Dominican Republic, amidst all the lockdown measures that we are seeing and that are imposed really by the government during the COVID-19, vulnerable populations were faced with multiple challenges, very, very tough challenges. Lack of sufficient information about subsidies, irregular working hours of banks, right, due to the lockdown, low level of banking for the most vulnerable citizens, difficulty to leave their houses due to imposition of lockdown measures. So to battle really these challenges and provide access to subsidies really among all these vulnerable groups, the Dominican Republic State Bank and Visa collaborated really to explore an efficient way to distribute emergency funds to more than almost 800,000 vulnerable families who really were very restricted inside their house due to the strict quarantine measures. So the initiative really in República Dominicana involves the development of a specific solution focused on converting the Dominican identity card into a payment card, really with credentials, right? So through this solution, beneficiaries really just needed their identity card to access to the funds at the point of sale, very easy. So without needing of any ATM or bank branches, so they just, with their identity card, they could really start to make their purchases. Please, Alex, if you move slide, if you go to the next slide. So if we talk now about urban mobility and how the importance of digital payment in this sector has been really accelerated by the pandemic, by this crisis. So around the world, we in Visa, we are involved in 500 projects that look to enable or expand contactless payments in transportation systems so that customers really can enjoy touchless payment experience when entering buses, trains, subways, any other mode of transport. The point is that the speed of all the COVID-related restrictions and various stages of reopening, as we know, we are seeing really an acceleration among all our active projects worldwide. Cities have continued launching really contactless payment solutions on systems, and really this has helped them really to provide solutions for essential workers and recovery. We have many examples in Brussels, in Bucharest, Hong Kong, and Santo Domingo that we recently launched this kind of project. So, of course, while the timeline can vary, it can vary really based on the infrastructure type and the scope of the city, the transport system. What we are seeing now these recent months is where projects that may take several years to implement now accelerating, and it can happen just in 6 months. So just to briefly explain you here, Santo Domingo, here in Latin America and in the Caribbean, from the end of April, Dominicans, the people from República Dominicana who carry out a contactless payment card, a Visa contactless payment card, meaning debit, credit, prepaid, they were able to jump on the bus and for a specific route of the city of the bus, they could really pay with their credit card, with their debit card. So basically, these buses were duly authorized to accept contactless, so no need of cash. It's very important to highlight that this initiative, which is the first one on the Caribbean and the Dominican Republic, was developed under an interoperable model. That means an open payment system, which is really that the passenger can use different contactless payment methods, right? Can use also wearables. It could use the mobile phone, and the card can issue by any bank of the country. So as you can imagine, something of this size to materialize, it involves the collaboration of multiple government agencies and private sector actors, right? So there was a National Transportation Authority leadership that was key, as well as the central bank, and many other technology also actors that really make this happen, right? So it's extremely important how the ecosystem joins and really together have a vision that they want really to push forward. So we've been here in BC, as I mentioned, really working with many projects. The first one really in Latin America really was in Rio de Janeiro, and then in Sao Paulo, and now with the Dominican Republic really becoming the second country in Latin America with enabling really contactless in mass transit. So next slide, please, Alex. Finally, I would like also to share with you an overview of the program that we just launched on Monday this week. We are very, very enthusiastic. We launched it together with the Resilient Cities Network, and the program is called Resilient Cities Shaping a Digital World. So the program basically aims to help cities, part of the Resilient Cities Network platform, to take advantages of the digital economy, the advantages that the digital economy is offering to develop digital infrastructure as part of the digital transformation that can build and further resilience across Latin American cities. The program is really focused for the cities that are part of the platform, as I mentioned, of the Resilient Cities Network that are based in Latin America and the Caribbean. Digitalization has gained relevance, really, as an enabler, right, of resilience. We've seen this in the recent years. The important, though, is that nowadays it has been extremely accelerated by the pandemic, right? People have started really changing the way they access services, they interact with people, the way they move in the city, how you navigate within the city. So in this context, the program really through collaborative work will support cities to accelerate this transformation and to deploy digital technology solutions as part of their resilience strategy, and with a special focus also on urban mobility as a catalyst to accelerate these changes. If we move to the next slide, please. The program will have a special focus also on digital inclusion. Digital inclusion is extremely important, to overcome really the challenges facing by citizens, but especially for the most vulnerable sectors of the population. So we are looking especially at three core capabilities in our program that enhance, of course, resilience of our LAC cities. We're looking at, of course, digital payments, as digital payments, day-to-day payments really can unlock significant benefits and establish strong foundations of a digital inclusion. We are looking at frictionless urban mobility, even for cities within Latin America and the Caribbean. Mobility now, holds the key really for promoting digital inclusive economy because, of course, the high dependency of citizens' connectivity, right, by transit public. And lastly, something important for us, of course, is the robust data foundations, which is a key fundamental element for achieving such a robust transformation, right? If we can move, please, to the next slide, which is the last one. Thank you, Alex. The program promotes an open and collaborative ecosystem. That's extremely important. And this ecosystem really wants to foster innovation and create spaces of dialogue among the different players. So more than ever, the world really demands new ways of collaborating. City governments should partner with citizens, businesses, startups, fintechs, academia to co-create, to adapt, and to partner with innovative stakeholders. Really, the digital city cannot be done by policymakers and government entities alone. So we see really the program as a valuable and useful tool to help cities accelerate this digital transformation from a resilient lens, and especially nowadays. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Hi, I hope you can hear me well. Thanks, Francis and Nini, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to discuss this important topic of digital transformation. My name is Fabien. I'm an urban planner and researcher based in Singapore, and currently I'm working as a consultant within the World Bank Group office in Singapore. So we are conducting a study about the response of ASEAN cities, Southeast Asian cities, regarding COVID-19. And especially, we are exploring the use of technology and digital solutions across the region. So please, next slide, Alex. Okay, you can go to the next one, actually, directly. Okay, so Southeast Asia has been impacted by the virus COVID-19 quite early. During the first wave in February of this year, with Singapore and Thailand recording the first cases outside of China. So today, Southeast Asia is still battling the virus, and we can see many common challenges across the region. So for example, the presence of high density large cities, also the presence of migrant and informal workers, who are more at risk of being contaminated by the virus. But there are also great disparities in terms of responses. with countries that have more or less controlled the epidemic today, and countries which still see an increase in the number of cases. In parallel, the smart city movement has been quite big in Southeast Asia. It has been a hot topic for quite some time now, with many cities in the region embracing technology to tackle complex urban challenges such as traffic congestion, delivery of public services, and so on. So during COVID-19, ASEAN smart cities were not particularly immune to the virus. They did not avoid lockdowns, for example, but we observed the emergence of many solutions in the region, many new solutions, which helped cities to navigate the crisis. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Alex. Okay, so we have compiled actually 40 solutions in the region. So there are many more, but we have made a list of 40 solutions, and we have linked those solutions with 10 challenges facing ASEAN cities during COVID-19 crisis. So I don't have time to dive into all these challenges, but basically we classified those challenges from the crisis management phase, so when the outbreak is very active, to the early recovery phase, and finally to the long-term recovery phase. So today I will give you 3 examples of solutions, and I will discuss a bit the lessons learned that we derived from those examples. If you can go to the next slide. Okay, perfect. My first example is about contact tracing, which has become a prominent feature in the new normal. So contact tracing is not only useful during the virus outbreak, it's also an important component during the early recovery phase. It's a complex task. It brings many challenges such as scale, efficiency, privacy, and many cities, many regions, many countries are struggling to find the right balance. So one way of dealing with contact tracing is to develop an holistic approach, to engage as many stakeholders as possible, and also to combine different kind of solutions, different kind of technologies. So this is what Singapore has been doing. So in order to support its human-driven contact tracing efforts, because contact tracing is still human-driven, Singapore has been combining 3 different solutions. The first one is an app, which is called Trace Together, so using Bluetooth technology. So an app that tells you if you've been in contact with a confirmed COVID case. The second one is a digital check-in system, which is called Safe Entry, that you can see at the bottom of the slide. So it's basically a QR code that retail businesses and public facilities can put on their entrance door. And every user entering these buildings need to scan the QR code with their mobile phones and enter their details when they enter a specific place. So this is to basically facilitate the tracing of places that have been visited by confirmed COVID case. And the last solution is a wearable device that you can see on the right of the slide, which is actually used by vulnerable seniors that are not connected, who don't have any mobile phones, and that are at risk of being impacted by the virus. So those solutions don't track the locations of people, and the data is only used if the user has been in close contact with a confirmed COVID case. So thanks to this, Singapore has shown very good figures recently in terms of numbers of linked cases. So it has a very interesting impact. And beyond this combination of technology, an important success factor is also the capacity to actually engage different stakeholders. For example, in the case of Safe Entry, so all the businesses, all the commercial malls, or all the public facilities can register online to get a QR code and to put the QR code in front of their entrance for people to scan the QR code when they enter their shops and so on. So very, very simple and easy. Next slide, please, Alex. So my second example is about the use of GIS to map vulnerable communities. So we know that informal settlements are more at risk in terms of COVID contamination. So on top of the virus, informal settlements, they already face a stacking of challenges, such as lack of sanitation, access to water, vulnerability to flooding, to heat, climate change, and so on. So a team of researchers from the Future Cities Lab, which is a research lab under ETH Zurich, has been working with the city of Makassar, Indonesia, to use a GIS, an open source GIS tool, which is called Earthscape, to map the COVID hotspots in the city. So the idea is to overlay different data sets that are provided by the city or which are open source, open access, to basically visualize this stacking of challenges and see which population groups are more at risk in the city. So the analysis will be used by the city to guide the next decisions in the new normal, and also to target more efficiently the next investments, actions toward population groups at risk. So one key lesson here is the importance of systematic data collection. Because the city of Makassar had a good database about its vulnerable population and also a system to collect the data about the COVID cases, the COVID clusters, the GIS analysis was much faster and really efficient, and the researchers were able to derive insightful lessons quite quickly. If we can go to the next slide, which is my last example. So my last example is about economy reopening. So this is a tool coming from Bangkok, Thailand, which is called FiveLab Market. So it's a mapping solution for local businesses to pin their products using a Google Map layer, and for residents living in the same area to see those local businesses and to see the products they sell if they want to support the local economy and buy those products. So actually, FiveLab is a startup based in Bangkok. So they developed a COVID tracker in March to basically map the locations of the clusters and to track the number of cases. But since the number of cases has dropped down in Thailand today, the tool has modified, the tool has changed to now support the local economy. So basically, using the same platform, people are now able to see the local businesses around them, and they can see which products they sell, and they can support them if they want. So this is a good way to bridge the gap between the formal and the informal economy using digital solutions. And this is also a good way of riding the support the local businesses wave, which is quite strong in Thailand in the early recovery phase. The key lesson here is the capacity for a digital tool to transform and to adapt to new needs, to new priorities, while maintaining the same features, the same interface. So there are many more examples that I could present, but for the sake of time, I will stop here with my example. Next, I'd like to flash out some key aspects that we have identified in the ASEAN's cities tech response to COVID-19. Thanks, Alex. So 6 aspects. The first one is transparency, trust, and efficient communication are in all the countries of the region the foundations of the tech response. That's very clear, and that's very important. Second, there is an ecosystem of solutions to fight COVID-19 across the different phases, and the solutions are changing over time, such as the example I just showed with FiveLab. Tech is only one part of the puzzle, and all the actors we interviewed acknowledged that technology cannot tackle root causes. You need to have stronger reforms, additional reforms for that. Support to vulnerable communities and informal businesses is a new frontier for smart cities. That's also something very, very important. There is also an interesting mix of low-tech and high-tech solutions in the region. So because of the emergency, many cities have responded with low-tech, low-cost solutions. For example, in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City, a foundation has a philanthropy, has installed rice ATMs for the most need to help deliver food to the most needy. So it shows that we don't always need sophisticated solutions to address a crisis. We can also tap on low-tech solutions. And finally, a combination of top-down and bottom-up initiatives has been observed in all the cities, all the countries, as well as challenges in terms of coordination between central government response and local government response. Okay, so I will stop here. So I could share much more, but for the sake of time, I will stop here. As we move forward in our study, there shall be new learning points, and I will be happy to share them with the network later on. Back to you, Alex. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for giving a presentation here to share our experience from Rotterdam. Let me introduce myself. Wait a minute, I cannot. Yeah, okay, it works. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Vieveen. I'm the City Lead Program Manager for Smart City and Digital Economy in the city of Rotterdam. And I'm working for the Urban Development Department, not for the ICT department, where I see a lot of colleagues working on smart cities are located. But well, the question that I received was, how is Rotterdam using digital infrastructures related to resilience and to COVID recovery? So that's my story for today. We've been working for the last years already as part of the C40 and 100 resilient cities as on our resilience strategy. And digital infrastructure is one of the main pillars, it's in two pillars in our resilience strategy. So we focus on cyber resilience, which I'm not going to discuss right now, but I'm going to focus on our objective number 5, to get the infrastructures ready for the 21st century. So how can we have the best infrastructure available, so also to be to be a resilient city. Well, that's a part that my program focuses on, not specifically on resilience, because we think that anyhow you need to have the best digital infrastructure in your city. And so we focus on high quality infrastructure availability, so fiber connectivity for citizens, small medium enterprises and business parks. And what we focus there is not have only one fiber connectivity available, but multiple availability. We think that businesses and also citizens should have a choice. We facilitate that process. The digital infrastructures in the Netherlands is a private area, so it's no government business. So we work together with telcos, with the telecom operators, to create more deployment efficiency, as we call that. So how can we make it easier for telecom operators to speed up their fiber rollout? Recently, early this month, or the end of June, actually, we signed an agreement with KPN, a large telco in the Netherlands, to provide fiber in the next 5 years to 285,000 households and shops. But also 5G. 5G is just launched in the Netherlands, but only with the low speed connectivity. In 2 years' time, a lot of small cells will be deployed, and also there's a lot of fake news and a lot of information lacking. So we work very closely together with also national government to raise awareness and also to provide that information to citizens, for instance. But also, instead of being reactive, we are proactive in the discussion that we have with the telecom operators. Okay, where do you want to deploy these small cells, and how can we help you? How can we assist you with that? So we help them with a quick deployment, and we help ourselves with a quick availability, but also with with a lot of deployment problems like traffic congestion if we need to have specific infrastructure into the city. Of course, also we focus on the infrastructure that we need to have as a smart city and also Internet of Things. That's not what I'm going to discuss more in depth here. Okay, but we also noticed that, well, you as a city, we are the second largest city in the Netherlands after Amsterdam, but, well, the world does not stop with the city boundaries. So we also defined together with the city of The Hague, within the metropolitan area, Rotterdam-The Hague, we defined also a regional strategy. So we talk about 23 municipalities and 2.3 million people living there. So we're also helping Rotterdam and The Hague are helping smaller cities with how to approach your digital infrastructures, how to deal with 5G, how can you work on cyber and cyber resilience. We work together with living labs, like we have a sensor living lab. We get a small, the humble lamppost or smart lamppost. We got 5G with the University of Delft, and also we have a drone lab. And we work together in that, and we exchange knowledge. And also, we see that we are a relatively small country, but one of the main data hubs in Europe and maybe in the world. And so that requires a lot of data centers, and we're also working together with data center businesses to look on what they need. Okay, but digital, as Fabien already mentioned, is that digital itself is not the objective. So what we defined in the last years is that we want to use digital tools and solutions for our urban, social, and economical challenges. So how can we enhance? How can we speed up the process in dealing with these urban, social, and economical challenges by using digital tools and by using digital infrastructures is a requirement to apply these digital tools and solutions. Without connectivity, there's you cannot do a lot of digital. So, for instance, we also discuss this. Let's say even this month with our city council, that we want to set up a charter, and they agreed with that. We call that Rotterdam Digital, and we want to discuss there and to define, okay, how can we achieve a level playing field? How can we ensure that everything that's done in the city is secure and privacy by design? How can we enhance transparency? How can we open up the models and open up data? How can we all from the perspective on the digital transition? There's also a European community already going on. Started early this year, Join, Boost, and Sustain. And we also have joined that community, but we want to go one step further. A bit on specific COVID initiatives that we that we've done. What we see is that infrastructure in most situations were very good for working from home or to get education from home or at home. You see that we're in the top 5, I think, worldwide for digital infrastructure. That does not mean that everything is perfect. We still have a a number of places that need additional infrastructure, that need new infrastructure. What we noticed is that students especially lacked laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots. So together with a large online shop with a bank and some other businesses and institutes and the IT campus, which represents all the IT education in Rotterdam. We provide something like 3,000 laptops and a little bit less Wi-Fi hotspots, so we can still they can follow the study. But we also saw that there are some women which were in a difficult situation at home, and they were lacking communication because by social influences. So we provided them with mobile data subscriptions. We also helped the small and medium enterprises with digital goodie bags, so to help them to step up in the digital transition that they needed to take. Of course, crowd monitoring. Of course, we had the intelligent lockdowns, not a full lockdown, but the intelligent lockdown, but still monitoring with cameras and scan cars. But then also we are launching a business app, so where you can see how busy is where I want to go in the Oneoff meter society. But that are more or less short-term initiatives. We're also looking on the mid-long term, and we call that program Rotterdam Sterker Door. That is our motto of the city. Rotterdam stronger through combat. That's our our motto. We received that after the Second World War, and now we want to become stronger. You see the green, white, and green banners. So we have to restart it, the society and the economy. We have to recover it, and we must become stronger from the crisis. So we keep investing. We continue building houses. There's a very shortage of houses in the Netherlands. We put a lot of emphasis on re-employment programs. The city council agreed to go on with 7 large city projects, including all kinds of smart and energy transition systems in that, and also some voucher systems which are lower. And you see that the Rotterdam Next Economy is their guiding line already for 2 years for this for the city council already, and that is all about how we need to continue the transition into the energy transition and also sustainability transition. And the only thing that we see is that it can only be done by a strong digital infrastructure and a strong digital emphasis. You see also economic impact analysis that we're doing, and also citizens. We also provided a platform where citizens can help citizens, as a digital platform. Well, future initiatives. What we see is that we get a lot of challenges, of course, from smart, resilient, sustainability, circular mobility, energy, and we see this is not a technical issue actually. The technical is maybe a condition for that, but in the end, it's an organizational question. So to tackle also the real digital, all these challenges, they have digital components. And so we identified that we needed a chief digital officer who, over all these challenges, is looking at the digital component and see how can we get more aligned instead of finding out the solutions by yourself or by the challenge itself. So no, we can do better, and we need to look at more in an integral perspective. So a lot of things in the exploration phase started with that. A lot of initiatives that we're now currently working on. So we're already looking ahead or past the COVID-19 issues that we're still in the middle. But we identified, okay, we need to progress with that anyhow, and we do that on local perspective, regional, national, but also European level. So we work with smart resilience in 10 cities that are active in the smart cities communities, the Global Resilient Cities Network, and the Open and Agile Smart Cities initiative. Working very closely there together. This is my last slide. This is a picture where what we made this year. What you see is that, there's some iconic buildings in Rotterdam. But you see there, technology and infrastructure is one of the pillars, essential key, but also knowledge and skills. So we also identified we as a city need to increase our knowledge and skills in this. We cannot leave it all to businesses and to universities. But we need to have a close working relation with these companies and knowledge institutes and citizens. And there you need to have your own knowledge skills need to be at the highest level. That's it for now. Thank you for your attention and your interest. And I think, Francis, you will take over from here to answer some questions. I'll stop the presentation.
Nini will take over. I'm afraid we'll have time maybe for one question, maybe two, but Nini, over to you.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Aida, Fabien, and Frank, for the great insight you just shared. So quickly, we have the result from earlier polling. So majority of the participants here really agreed that technology and long-term recovery planning is really very important. And then we have almost tie for the top two on building back better and using technology. It's really important to both ensuring that it's empowering the citizen and local communities, as well as aligning the environmental sustainability objective. So I'll go with the first question. We have a question from Max here, Max Buchet. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. With the speed of technology, so technology moves really fast. Often there's a gap of information, and I can add also maybe gap like capacity or procurement between city leaders and officials and the availability of those new technologies. So the question is, how can city leaders, city officials can better connect and adopt this new available technology? Maybe we'll go with Aida first, and then Fabien and Frank. Thank you.
Hi, hello again. Well, I think really the question was really for government, but as in my professional career and currently, of course, we are really dealing with, we're working as partners with a lot of governments. I can already answer. I think really the answer to your question is really about innovation in procurement. One thing is really, of course, to pilot a technology or to support really to develop the digital infrastructure. But if you really want to deploy, as you were mentioning, if I understood correctly, a specific technology and I really adapt it, especially if the innovation, it comes really from startup, it's very, very difficult, as we know, really, that the government really adapts that one unless it really goes to procurement, as you well said. So the terms and conditions of the tenders should be really open for innovation. And this is something, for example, that in Europe, especially in the UK, they're very, very advanced. But it's something extremely, extremely important that we continue pushing really these tenders to be much more open, to really allow competition, and to especially allow this innovation from that generally 90% comes from startups, right? So that's my answer.
Maybe I can go next. Thanks, Max, for the question. I agree with Aida. I think it has a lot to do with creating an environment for innovation and for experiments. And I also think that capacity building is a key topic in that sense, because you need also to be able to train so the city leaders, you need to make them aware of the technologies out there, but all the potentials, the possibilities that the technology can offer. So for me, if you were to adopt a new solution, if a city were to adopt a new solution or new technology, it needs to go in hand with capacity building and with proper training of the civil officer of the middle management level, who will be the ones really dealing with the solution, using the solution, making the solution evolving, and so on. So yeah, creating a proper environment for innovation, and also encouraging capacity building at all levels and all different phases.
Okay, I'll go next. Frank here. Well, that's something that I addressed. We said, okay, we need to have a chief digital officer who can translate all the things that that happens, digital evolution happening outside the city, the organization of the city. Let's call it like that, the municipality. We need to translate that. So I think for too long we have said, okay, well, how do you call that? I didn't get the right word, but so businesses. Okay, let the business do that, and we will follow. But I think we should not follow, but we are part of the whole evolution that is taking place now in the digitalization of society and of the environment and of let's say the social questions that we have. So I think we as a city should be more aware of that. We're taking now, I think, well, maybe the next or the second steps in that. And I think it's also being aware from businesses that we as a city are also a very complex system. So I get a lot of people talking to me or getting offers saying, okay, I got the best solution for you, and you're crazy if you don't buy this for me or for my competitor, whatever. But the question that I always ask, okay, how does it fit in our process? And the process is very complex. So what kind of component do you provide me so I can use it as a city? So you may have the best technology, but if it does not fit into the process, and of course we need to adapt processes and we need to change that, but we're quite large organizations and quite complex systems. So I cannot deal with 100 different dashboards because everyone has a dashboard. Okay, but no, how does it fit into my overall system? And that also raises then the awareness that we as an organization need to change and need to change faster. So that's okay. Maybe long question, long answer, but. Thank
you, Frank, Aida, and Fabien. Maybe a quick question. We have a few more minutes. There's a very good question from Max Boucher, who says, okay, this is all good and fine, and there are some interesting solutions indeed, and there's some very good service provider, but how do you do? Can you enter into specific agreement with some of these service providers to limit the risk of failure or to bear the cost of failure? Because very often the city then buys a solution, it fails, and then the city bears the entire cost, whereas it succeeds, and then the private operator harvests most of the benefits. Have you seen interesting models that allow for cost sharing? And Aida, I think this is an obvious question for you at Visa, and maybe you as well, Frank, in your experience in Rotterdam, and Fabien, I don't know if you've observed some possible solution. Very quickly, we only have a few minutes left. Maybe starting with you, Aida.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for this interesting question and challenging situation normally that you face. Our first thing is right, failure. I mean, we have to accept failure if we want to innovate, right? And still, this in government is something very, very difficult. I mean, if we speak about governments, of course, there's quite a lot of chief innovation officers and many innovation, but not as much as, of course, we would like. So, and especially budget for these chiefs of innovation or some kind of figure similar. So this is the first, right? So failure, we have to accept it. Another thing is really the cost, right? Because if you think that failure, it has a cost, but it's a learning, then this is not a failure, right? In itself, it's a process of learning that maybe the next step, on the next second or third step, then it will be profitable. So this is the first thing. And then in terms of interesting models, of course, I mean, this is really, it depends on the nature of the project, case by case. But again, the main point for us here is again about the ecosystem, opening up an ecosystem with a collaborative understanding of where do we want to go. So even if the different organizations, entities, different startups, businesses, academia have its own interest, the common denominator has to be exactly the same, has to be shared. The vision has to be shared and has to be improving citizens' lives. If we have this, then we will build interesting, creative, and innovative models where we will share, I would not even say the cost, we will share the risk, right? Because sometimes the risk is an institutional risk, right? A political risk. So it's extremely important, again, the new models of collaboration and how we together push that forward, that vision, sharing the risk. Thank you, Francis.
Frank, you want to try answer?
No, I agree with that. We have to, as a city, we work with tax money, so yeah, it must be spent wisely. So failure is not an option. While in this case, yeah, you need to be able to fail, otherwise you cannot innovate and you cannot learn. This, as Aida said. So yeah, totally agree. And that also means that we, for not for everything, of course, but for a number of areas, we need to have more experimentation room for experimentation, and also to do some failures, and maybe start small and scale up fast. I think that's also yeah, key, and also that I think is an issue. Okay, if you want to scale up fast, okay, then we have yearly budgets instead of multi-year budgets and things like that. So that is all complicated, especially I only know from the Netherlands, but yeah.
Probably the same in many countries. Fabien, do you want to add to this?
Yes, thanks, Francis. So this issue of vendor lock-ins has been highlighted by many cities I've been interviewing in the region. So I agree with Frank. I think one way, especially in developing countries, is to start small. So maybe start with small projects, also engage with any universities, research labs, because they are not going to impose any strict conditions, you know, on their solutions. So that's also a way of starting a conversation, starting to collect data, to develop new mechanisms, and then increases as new partnerships come up. So I think this is that city needs to put in place in order to avoid any issues. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Fabien. Thank you, Aida. Thank you, Frank. I think I am left with the task of closing today's session. I was actually quite a few things that really struck me during the presentation. Aida, you talked about a digital leap forward, and I was impressed by the statistics that you used, saying that we basically observed 3 years of development or technological development, but also behavior change in just a couple of months. And this change is likely to change since this crisis is now lasting. Fabien, you talked about the fact that technology is just a supplement to human action. And I think it was interesting how you showed that every one of the solution that indeed we're studying for this World Bank paper require several actors, several tools to work together to provide a solution to a problem. It's not, one app is not going to save the world. And I think, Frank, you put the cherry on the cake by showing that this would not be possible without infrastructure, without policies, without agreement with the community at large, and in fact, without trying to promote a whole ecosystem to make it work, to create, to promote entrepreneurship in this field. So thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. Next session will be in a week's time. We'll go back to our Thursday standard schedule, 9 to 10 New York or Singapore time, and we will focus on Safer School with speakers from Tbilisi and Paris. So we really look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again for joining us, and have a good end of the day wherever you are around the world. Thank you so much. Bye now.